Welcome to another parent-teacher video lesson from the earlygiftedmanual.com, a free website for homeschooled children 3 to 7 years old and their parents that promotes and develops giftedness at an early age. I am Gary Blank, the creator of that site, and your host and facilitator for this video and all of the videos in my educational program. As the video lessons are designed to work in conjunction with the program on my website, I ask you to, at some point, click on the URL link in the description box below, and this action will take you to the earlygiftedmanual.com. By doing that, you will be able to put this lesson and all of the video lessons here on my channel in the proper context of the total program that I am presenting to you and your child. Welcome to Lesson 12, and in this lesson you will be teaching your child how to name the colors and the shapes, how to identify and name the various colors and shapes. And for this lesson you will almost certainly be working with a very young child. In fact, this is one of the first formal lessons you could actually do with your child. Okay. The materials you will need, as you can see, I have some color squares here on the table, and we'll talk a little bit more about those shortly, how you can make those. You will also need for this lesson cutout shapes, and possibly, if your child is really doing well and has learned all the colors and shapes, you could even teach her about the geometric solids, so you will need a set of geometric solids. Okay, how do you make these color squares? Well, here's how I make them. I use a piece of cardboard. You can get cardboard like this from the back of a legal pad or a notepad. And as you can see, I cut it into a 2-inch square here. And then it made it very easy for me to make all these various, I call them color swatches. And as you can see, there's 2 of each, and we'll get into that in a minute. Your child is going to be matching these squares for one of her tasks. And the way we're going to teach this is it's going to happen in 3 steps, and each step will get a little more challenging than the last one. In the first step, your child will match colors. In the next step, she will point to a color after you say the color name, and then finally she will be naming a color that you point to. So every step gets a bit more challenging. And another thing that I'm doing here is I'm isolating the concept of identifying these colors. In other words, there are no objects involved, it's just a color swatch. So your child doesn't have any biases about certain things being certain colors or whatever other kind of confusion might result from doing it that way. Of course, you can do it that way informally, but this is a really good fast-track way to teach your child the colors. All right, and as you can see, I have several colors out here. And what I've done is I've kind of gone from the basic colors, and then we have black and white here, and then the more, what's the word I want to use, esoteric colors that are mixtures of the basic colors, going all the way to the final one, which I call tan. And in the beginning, of course, and you probably would want to go like that. Start out with these, and as he or she gets better, you can take in these other ones here. And I think to start out, though, I think I want to do this. You might want to start out with just 4, but perhaps let's just say 6 here. So the first task will be for your child to match the color squares. And in order to do that, you'll have to show her how to do that. So take these down, mix them all up, and you could say, look, Bill, here's how you do this. You match up colors. You get the idea. And then you can mix them all up and have him do it. May seem easy to you, but for many 3-year-old kids and even younger, sometimes they're taught these colors at even a younger age, it can be challenging for some of them. So this is a great place to start. And of course, if this is too easy, you can go right on to the next step, which is you will be naming a color, and then he or she will point to it. And that kind of works like this. You could say just the color name. You don't have to say anything more than that. Just say blue, and hopefully your child will point to the correct square. Blue. Yellow. And on and on. So that's the next step of difficulty. She has to actually recognize the colors by the names as you say them. And finally, the third part of this exercise is she will actually have to name the colors. So you will be pointing to a color, and then she will name it. So you might do this, and she would have to say green. You might do this, and he would say black. You point here, he would say red. So that's how a great way to teach your child to learn the color names. Very the express lane, the fast way to teach your child how to name the colors. And now let's talk about teaching your child how to identify and name shapes. And one thing I forgot to tell you when we were working with colors is all of these cutouts are made with construction paper of various colors, and of course you can purchase them just about anywhere locally. Forgot to say that, so I thought I'd add that in right now. And here's how I made these, the same way I made the color square swatches. As you can see, I've taken cardboard and made what I call tracers, and then I trace them onto the construction paper and cut out. And these are great because, you might want to use this shape again for an art project, or you might have to make another set, and you've always got them, and the sizes and everything will be the same. Nothing will vary. As you can see, these look exactly the same, the pairs, and that's what you want. Okay, so we have circle, rectangle, square, triangle, hexagon. You can call this a diamond or a rhombus. This is a trapezoid, and this, of course, is an oval. And once again, the simplest shapes are here, and then, of course, they get a little more challenging as you go this way. So I think, just to give you an example here, you might want to start with just these here. So once again, step one, your child matches the shapes, and you will mix them up, and she will have to match them up like this. Okay, that's the matching part of it. Now you will be naming the shape, and your child will be pointing to it. So you would say, Johnny, point to rectangle. And you just might want to say the word, and then you might say circle. He will point to the circle. Triangle. Square. So that's the second part of learning the shapes. And finally, you would point to the shape and she would be naming it. So it would work like this. Let's say you point here, and he would have to say rectangle. You point here, and she would say triangle. You would point here, and she would say square. So that's how your child learns to identify and name the shapes. Before we talk about the geometric solids, I wanted to go back And I kind of forgot to say this in the last lesson. As you notice, these shape cutouts I've made are all gray, and they're all the same color, and that's what you want. And I've especially chosen very, what should I say, almost a lack of color. So gray, white, or black would be good colors of construction paper to use for this, because you really, once again, want to isolate the concept you're teaching. You don't want colors to get mixed up in this, or various objects. You're isolating the concept of shape. So I recommend gray. I think that's a good color. But once again, you could use black or white. All right. Also, I should say that you can teach the colors and the shapes at the same time, so you can teach them concurrently, or if you decide, you could teach the colors first and then the shapes afterwards. All right, here we go with the geometric solids. And if your child's been doing really well and has learned all the names and can identify the shapes and the colors, you could move on to this. And as you can see, we have a sphere. And by the way, this is a commercial set, and if you go to the Early Gifted Manual, there's a link that'll take you where you can buy a set like this. I have a set of 6. And don't let this throw you. It's a little stand, a bottle cap I have to keep this from rolling off the table. And your child may want to call this a ball. And of course, that's one type of sphere, but teach her the word sphere, because that's actually what it is. A cube, cylinder, circular cross section, a cone, and this one they won't have much trouble with, because upside down like that, it's an ice cream cone. A pyramid. And since it's square on the bottom, you could go one step farther and call it a square pyramid. And this shape is called a prism, and in this case, a triangular prism, because its cross-section is triangular. So those are 6 basic shapes you can use. And of course, to start out with, you might want to eliminate the tougher ones here. So I think I'll take these off and leave these 4. And once again, first step is matching, but let's face it, most people don't have 2 sets of these, and you probably won't, so we'll just have to skip that one. And so the next step would be you would name the geometric solid, and she would point to it. So you would say cone, and hopefully she would point to the cone. You would say sphere, cube, cylinder. All right, and of course the last step in this process is you point to the geometric solid and she will name it. So you point. Hopefully he would say sphere. You point. He or she would say cone, and you point. Hopefully she would say cube, and that's how you, it's exactly like we've done with the colors and the shapes. Great way for learning colors, shapes, geometric solids, very streamlined. It cuts out all the possible misconceptions they might have and isolates the concept. And if you want to see even more colors and shapes activities, just go to the Early Gifted Manual, go to Arithmetic and Math, and finally go to Colors and Shapes. And there's a few more great activities you can do with your child that will help them to learn the names of the colors and shapes and be able to recognize them and name them. And finally, here is an add-on to the shapes lesson. And this is the first time it happened, and it probably won't be the last, but I reviewed the video and realized that I left out some very important information. So I'm going to add that on here at the end. And what I left out is actually quite important. As you work with the different shapes, of course, you want to talk about their attributes. What makes a circle a circle? What makes a triangle a triangle? And this can be, like I said, as you're going along. That actually happens kind of naturally. So you can add that into what I already showed you. Let me give you an example. A circle really only has one side, doesn't it? And it's curved and it comes back on itself. Rectangle, 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. So there's new vocabulary, of course, being introduced here. We have sides, we have corners. The rectangle has 1, 2, 3, 4 corners. And this, of course, is a square, and it's a special kind of rectangle. It also has 1, 2, 3, 4 sides and 1, 2, 3, 4 corners. But the length of each side is exactly the same and equal to, there's another vocabulary word you could perhaps introduce. The sides are the same length. Triangle, 1, 2, 3 sides, 1, 2, 3 corners. And on we go, a hexagon, 6 sides, 6 corners. And these two are tricky. The diamond or rhombus, well, look, it has the same number of sides and corners as the rectangle, but it sure doesn't look like one, does it? And for now, you really don't want to be getting into degrees of angles and parallel lines and stuff like that, parallelograms. So you're just going to have to let that sit for now and just say, well, these are different kinds of, maybe I should say 4-sided figures, and hopefully he or she will just be able to recognize the difference. So that's those two. And finally, you have the oval, which is a sort of a stretched out circle. So I'm very sorry I forgot those. And like I said, this is ongoing as you're doing the whole lesson. You're always reviewing the attributes of the various shapes.